Yujiro Hanma has become a staple when discussing battle anime or shonen in general, being paired alongside the juggernauts in hand-to-hand combat such as Goku, Naruto. It's even debates with him taking on the likes of Batman in terms of hand-to-hand. It cannot be denied how much of an icon Yujiro has become for anime fans and gym rats everywhere. With that being said, today we'll be taking a look at the strongest creature in Baki and assessing how strong he is exactly. The day Yujiro Hanma was born, every single creature that is placed on the pyramid of strength went down one ranking that day. Yujiro's birth was so extreme that during the month he was born, every single nation on Earth decided it was time to begin stockpiling a nuclear arsenal. Yujiro comes from the Hanma bloodline, which can hardly be considered human considering his skeleton is closer to that of a monster than a man, with Baki, Yujiro's son, having a brain resembling a demon's face. It's very clear that these guys are just as close to humans as Saiyans or Viltrumites are. The Hanma bloodline is simply to be built different, except for you, Jack. Yujiro being so monstrous that the US military and president go out of their way to sign a treaty with him every year to avoid conflict with this single being. The USA treating this man like a nuclear weapon of war, with it even being questioned if he was alone in a desert, would a nuke even work against him? Yujiro and his father being individuals who have quote-unquote defeated the USA. Now, this more than likely doesn't mean that if 40 nukes are launched at Yujiro, he's just going to reflect them all into one another or just blatantly tank it. It would just be too much of a problem, especially considering he hangs out in cities quite a bit. But this dude is so respected that the USA is basically his playground. It's really no wonder he's monitored among 3 select individuals via satellite at all times. There's also other showings such as Yujiro defeating a monster elephant far larger than any normal variant rampaging, the same beast being completely unaffected by the military and defeating them, with Yujiro taking down this being via sheer force. It just seems consistent that Yujiro can do a lot of the stuff the US military can't, but that's like its own discussion, because obviously, you know, if nuking Yujiro out of existence is the only way to take him out, then you're kind of screwing over anybody who's in the vicinity or maybe the planet itself, which obviously isn't a foreseeable win con. But aside from the minor lore suggestions surrounding Yujiro, let's talk about some of his actual stats. Starting off with speed, there's a ton of speed feats throughout the series, so let's just paint a picture of what we're looking at. A pretty standard speed feat for Yujiro is him catching an arrow before it leaves the drawstring. Yujiro able to stop this bow, which actually did have a draw weight of 200 kilograms. Or 440 pounds, which is just absurd. So this is obviously not an insignificant feat by any metric. Even accounting for the arrow needing to accelerate to meet its top speed, which is, you know, even if you imply that is the case in fiction, this is just still a very impressive feat for Yujiro, being a decent distance away. This feat has actually been calced based on the anime showing of the feat. Yujiro essentially moves 1.726 meters in approximately 0.000666 seconds. This totals out to a low end of Mach 6.25 or a high end Mach of 7.52. All calcs will be in the description, by the way, for full disclosure, so I'm not going to go through and explain the math on each of them just because you can take a look at it if you want to see that for yourself. We see that Hanayama is able to block bullets while injured, grabbing a soldier as the bullet fires, someone who is not right in front of him. This feat has been calculated to 1.3179 meters per second, or subsonic, which again is pretty consistent as Yujiro's just stronger than Hanayama and faster than not just Hanayama but everybody in the verse. And the reason I'm not going into crazy depth on this calc is because we actually have faster feats such as Katsumi's Mach Punch. Katsumi aligns his joints perfectly to deliver a punch or punches that break the sound barrier. He later refines the technique using Kakukayo's suggestion to imagine his body is made of 1,000 joints. This is referred to as hitless blows, which Yujiro would obviously scale above. We can see Katsumi's Mach Punch where we actually see him break the sound barrier when he's training in the dojo. This is a bare minimum Mach 1 feat. However, when we see the full capabilities of the technique, Kakukayo actually notes that with the refined use of the hitless blows, you would have no problem reaching 1,000 miles per minute or Mach 78 plus, which is just ridiculous. Even if you didn't think Katsumi scaled to this, which I mean he should, there'd be no doubt that Kakukayo himself would, and obviously Yujiro would scale above that. Yujiro would have no issues using this technique in a combat setting, unlike Katsumi, whose like entire arm was ripped off, or like, you know, just it was completely shattered, like it was just pure bone. Yujiro just with a much more durable structure and a much more durable bone structure, could probably imply, would just have no issue reaching these speeds. So this would honestly be low ball for Yujiro. Going further than that, we actually have Yujiro blitzing a group of soldiers right after dinner with Baki. Yujiro was essentially able to disappear and reappear behind the police squad that was watching him from several dozen meters away. This calc is derived off the human eye taking 1/220th of a second to perceive an image, which when putting the conversion in actually gives us Mach 37.5. He did this very casually without activating his demon back. This is consistent with Kakukayo stating he could have reached 1,000 miles per minute, Mach 78.88, who Yujiro fought and it was able to beat. To top this off, it's even implied that Yujiro may actually be able to dodge lightning. However, in the context of the show, this is more so a discussion about Yujiro when he actually does get struck by lightning rather than an objective feat. So consider it on the upper end if you decide not to use it. However, in my opinion, the fact that it's somewhat implied, it does kind of give reason to it. This isn't even the upper limits of characters in Baki who can actually amp their speed even further with certain moves or abilities. For example, we have Baki using the cockroach tackle. We see this move make its debut in Baki's fight with Biscuit Olivia. When Baki's about to lose consciousness, he seems to melt as his muscles relax before snapping back together. Much later, he tries to unlock the secret of the cockroach's ability to run at a top speed from the start. Then, while walking home down an alley, he saw a dying cockroach and that its legs were liquid on the inside. Using this for reference, he was able to relax to the point of feeling like a liquid before snapping back together and dash forward at incredible speeds. When used against his father, Yujiro Hanma, it's revealed that the speed is 168 miles per hour with an acceleration of 0.01 milliseconds. This isn't even getting into any of the crazier stuff with, spoiler, take 3 seconds, Musashi Miyamoto later in the story. So high hypersonic plus just seems to be the realm where Yujiro lies, maybe even arguably massively hypersonic if you want to include the demon back. This is the Mach 50 to 100 range, and massively hypersonic would be 100 to 1000. Massively hypersonic plus might be a jump in my opinion. I think there's if you did argue that, by all means, but I'm just going off consistency. And, again, high hypersonic plus to massively hypersonic. These are just the ranges I think Yujiro is the most consistent. Next up, we have strength. Now, we do know Yujiro is verbatim the strongest creature on the planet after going out and destroying every creature on the planet. Absolute, just demonic energy. His black air forces were laced tight. There's the obvious feat that a lot of people are probably aware of where Yujiro punches a earthquake. Now, this has been debated on whether or not he actually stopped the earthquake itself or just sensed it and then punched the ground to try and flex it off like, oh, I stopped an earthquake. However, if you do take the feat at face value, there have been calcs done on it, being extremely conservative, keeping the earthquake at magnitude 5, 6, and 7. It also takes into account that the earthquake was actually shaking the buildings around, not just the area surrounding Yujiro, Baki, and the other fighters. So we have a low end, mid end, and high end for this specific calc. The low end is multi-city block level, the mid end is town level, and the high end is large town level, which is, again, pretty impressive since these are very conservative and Yujiro just punches the ground. In base, again, might add. It does seem to be consistent with the narrative that Yujiro is comparable to earthquakes in Baki, because when Baki is image fighting, he actually causes a small earthquake when he represents Yujiro's attack, with residents surrounding Baki's complex reacting to the earthquake, with it also affecting objects in the house. However, not obviously everybody's reacting to it, so it seems more so that this earthquake be a magnitude of 3.5 and 4, which is what the other calc takes into account. But I do want to note that Yujiro being compared to an earthquake does seem to be a kind of consistent narrative trend in Baki. It does seem to have some author intent behind it. Obviously, take it as you will, but this dude is also the same guy who's just being compared to nuclear weapons, so I don't think him punching earthquakes or being compared to that is really that much of a stretch, considering he's still the undisputed #1 of the verse and we still haven't seen his upper limits. It'll also be consistent with Yujiro's lore, his fist being stronger than a nuclear impact, with even the latest military technology not being able to defeat him. Yujiro himself is also capable of shaking skyscrapers when he's angry. We do see this in his fight with Baki, but he has been known to shake the surrounding building whenever he's prone to anger or can choose to do so with his presence. So Yujiro being at this town to large town level just isn't anything inconsistent for the Baki universe, and is for him specifically, honestly, probably downplay in all honesty, but this, I'm just kind of painting a narrative for you guys. Next up, we have Yujiro's durability. Now, this is where we start to get into really the better parts of Yujiro. Now, Yujiro's durability is something to behold, and unlike our other hypothetical yet implied lightning dodge earlier, we actually do see Yujiro blatantly tank a lightning strike and continued on his way as if nothing changed at all. You might say, well, we've had cases where people have been struck by lightning and survived in our world, and while that's true, the reason Yujiro's is more impressive is due to how the bolt actually lingered on Yujiro. It being explicitly stated, this would have just killed a normal person. Bro is actually bathing in lightning. We do know it's a few seconds, kind of arbitrary measure, since people are walking around Yujiro have had time to hear the bolt and react to Yujiro bathing in it. You could also argue this is some level of electricity resistance, which I do think is somewhat fair. If you want a blatant 1-to-1 for Yujiro's durability, he was able to withstand Musashi Miyamoto's sword strikes with only light damage or gashes to his body. This is far more impressive when considering the fact Musashi is shown cutting an armored vehicle straight in half, which is consistent with the performance against the primitive man Pickle, who is quite renowned for his durable body and bone structure, yet is getting massive amounts of blood drawn from Miyamoto's physical strikes alone. Musashi being one of the few characters actually described to be peerless on a similar level to Yujiro. So it should just be pretty clear Yujiro is a step above compared to the rest of the cast. As if this weren't impressive enough, Yujiro has also showcased a somewhat limited resistance to pain on top of his hard body. Pause. As we see in his fight with Baki, he's capable of tensing all the muscles in his body to negate the pain of a whip strike. A technique known for making the user wish they were dead from the pain itself, meaning that if you are strong enough to actually hurt Yujiro, he'd still have some way to mitigate that advantage. Next up, we have martial arts. Now, this is where Yujiro shines the brightest, in my opinion, as he's an absolute juggernaut in a show where you have every type of fighter in it. Yujiro stands out as a prodigy among prodigies, a battle super genius that has the focus of combat embedded into his very DNA. Yujiro's shown the ability to instantly master and replicate techniques he sees with the same level of mastery as individuals with decades of practice and experience under their belt. This can be seen most prominently with Yujiro vs Kakukayo, with Yujiro instantly being able to pick up on Kakukayo's use of Shiori and instantly master it to the same degree. Yujiro also having said mastery of every martial art in the world, including ones passed down through noble blood, just makes him an absolute juggernaut with a move or art for virtually any situation. This, coupled with his absurd physicality, is what makes Yujiro such a dominant force in his own series. I really wish I could say more about Yujiro's martial arts, but essentially boils down to this. If there's a technique that you can think of, Yujiro would have had mastery over it. Or if he hadn't had mastery over it, he will be able to after just seeing the technique once. And this goes for every technique in the Baki show. He just doesn't use a bunch of these techniques because he doesn't think they're worth his while most of the time. Yujiro even being capable of countering completely self-made styles. We see this in his little bout with Muhammad Ali. There's many examples of Yujiro just explaining every ultimate technique in the series. So him having mastery over everything is just very consistent. He has the knowledge to back it up. So in a battle with hands, Yujiro just has every option available to him, to the point that even if you made up a style like suited to take down Yujiro himself, he would instantly figure out a counter to it or be able to replicate it within seconds of seeing it. Speaking of techniques, we actually see that Yujiro has access to the ultimate technique, that being the demon back. Yujiro's full power, described as the natural born fighter structure from Kakukayo. The demon back is an amp on Yujiro and what he considers going all out. There is no known definitive measure for an increase in strength the demon back offers. However, we do know it is substantial, as Baki during his fight with Olivia had no chance against him in terms of physical might, with even his blows having no effect on Biscuit. 2, having Baki surpass Olivia in terms of physical strength, Baki even gaining a durability boost, as prior he could not withstand attacks from Olivia, but post demon back he could trade blows with the giant. Retsu, in a non-canon line in the anime during his fight with Baki in the max turn, he says Baki's kicks became twice as powerful after he awakens his Hanma blood. So demon back could likely be a 2 through 4 times amp, though the line isn't official, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. But this type of measure, 2 through 4 times, is again, although it's like vague, it's not an inconsistent measure due to the increase in strength and durability. We even see how ridiculous the demon back is when Baki utilized the image fighting against his father. Image fighting is where Baki creates perfect images of people or creatures to spar with or use in a fight. An example of this being the Triceratops fist. This technique also does enhance Baki, as despite Baki only weighing 70 kilos, the attack exceeds 100 kilos and knocks over a car. How does this relate to the demon back? Well, when using this against Yujiro, we actually see that the ultimate form of image fighting is revealed to be the face of a demon laughing. Yujiro can take this a step further and actually make the demon cry, which is when he's decided he wants to kill an opponent. So on top of this dude just running through everything, he also has a Kaioken type boost to just aid him in all of this. It's just not fair. The Hanmas do not belong in Baki. They're just not fair to everybody else. Moving past that though, we'll actually talk about some of Yujiro's abilities, because this dude's broken in literally every category. It's actually not fair. Starting with his accelerated development. Yujiro stated to be constantly improving at an alarming rate. Also stated specifically to always be improving in terms of martial arts, which basically means if you're ever close enough to Yujiro or like on his level, he's going to instantly adapt or improve past that given enough time. Yujiro in his own verse is essentially a continuously moving goalpost that is just never going to be reached unless you're at a certain strength threshold or you have like the ability to improve at an alarming rate like him. This basically means that every feat in the story for Yujiro is just consistent lowball because he's always going to improve beyond it. So there just isn't too much to stop Yujiro. And while he's this juggernaut, the real heart of it is his biology, because even Baki believes that nothing can stop Yujiro, not even diseases like cancer or AIDS, which is just ridiculous, which is also consistent as Yujiro as a baby just killed a poison dart frog, which also does imply a certain amount of poison resistance as well. So it's his biology is just made to be different. Interestingly enough for Yujiro, he's such an animal that he's actually able to instantly deduce the weakness of every human he lays eyes on, to the point that he can actually peer into their internal organs and instantly deduce just what the problem is. And he does this with such accuracy. And this isn't hyperbolic, because he takes one look at Tokugawa and tells him that he straight up needs a checkup. He needs to go to the doctor. So he almost has like a level of X-ray vision. It's just pretty crazy. This also goes for injuries. Yujiro is instantly able to deduce the exact measure of damage someone has taken, like in Baki's fight with Hanayama. He's just able to note what's wrong with him completely. So again, Yujiro having this kind of X-ray vision and being able to deduce a fighter's strengths and weaknesses almost entirely instantly just makes him unstoppable, if I'm being honest. So to sum up, Yujiro just seems consistently this, high hypersonic plus character. In terms of speed, this town to large town level character. In terms of strength, who just is this kind of like equal stats god in terms of hand to hand. He's just not really stoppable. Insane durability, insane resistances, some really impressive biology. So while he's not like this Son Goku where he's like blowing up plants and stuff like that, but he could hardly be considered human. So Yujiro's absolutely ridiculous. Let me know if you guys enjoyed the video. I want to see more Baki. If you do decide you want more Baki, like the video, subscribe if you're new here, and catch you next time. Bye bye.